Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I am your host, Professor Prime. So, I want to make this video to conclude my logic and literacy series, at least for now. Um, and I want to ask some questions about like the kind of things that we talked about here today, as well as a few more additional items. And so, quick recap. So we have math and writing, and we treat them in their like they're in their own realm. I treat writing a paper very differently than I do a math problem. That's what I'm thinking about, like in general, right? But really, they are the same, even if they look different. And so whether I am writing a paper in English, or I'm solving a problem with math, or I'm doing a problem, sorry, if I'm writing an essay in Spanish, I'm really applying the same sort of things. And the big takeaway message there was in all these cases, especially if we're dealing with argument style essays, I have my intro, my main body, my conclusion, and in that main body, I am doing whatever it takes to prove or disprove whatever claims that are being made, either by me or by some sort of prompt. And ideas like, this is made using evidence. This is made using our own style. And everything is connected by that sort of logic. And the idea is that in each of those cases, we still have to look at things outside of logical structures of whatever we're working on. We have to know the language that we're writing in. We have to, if we're in English or if we're in Spanish or if we're doing math, we have to know the mechanics of those languages. We have to know the vocabulary. We have to know the rules. We have to know the syntax. We have to know what we can do here. And so that's what I was getting at in those sort of videos. And then it's just like, okay, so math and writing, hopefully you'll see that they're more connected than we were thinking before, right? And so then it's like, well, what does that suggest? What does that mean? So in my classes that I've taught and a lot of things that I've seen, since we treat math and writing so differently, the organization is impacted. So my thing is like, well, so how does this connection impact organization perhaps? So when I'm writing a paper or when someone's writing a paper, we already know the things that I mentioned before about like, okay, I have a place where I'm starting, I have a place in the middle, and I have a place where I'm ending up. Um, but we don't treat it that way in math. We we tend to write um, math kind of how we think sometimes. Like we're kind of fleshing it out as we're going along that path. And so a lot of the times, what I'll see is it's disorganized. Like when you're writing that paper, you would not have your conclusion like in the upper right, your intro in the middle, and your main body somewhere in the upper left, but also in the lower left, and maybe a little bit in the lower right. You wouldn't have it like that, right? You would have it more organized if you were doing paper. And so I feel like the same should be applied to math, and we can do that. But we don't traditionally teach that. And so what I'm thinking with this connection, if we understand that a bit better, then we can organize our math a bit better. And I think that's key because, like, right, you are making a statement. You are communicating when you're doing math. And if things are all over the place, no one's going to want to read that. And it's not the fault of anyone doing the math. I feel like everything could be taught differently. So I am hoping that this sort of logic helps with that. So that's what I envision. Like I envision that this could it could work both ways though too, right? Because when I'm doing math, I could be like, okay, so I can organize that better in a way that's more cohesive, in a way that's more coherent, in a way that really stands out, where it's like, okay, I know where I'm starting, I know this is the middle, I know where it ends, and like I wouldn't say making sure your conclusion is key, that's identified, right? And then on the flip side, if you're writing a paper, I think being more aware that you are using a lot of logic in this helps you detail things out a bit better. And so then, so I talked about what I talked about, and the idea is like I'm coming at this from an angle that a lot of people do have issues with math, and I want to talk about how this can kind of impact STEM versus non-STEM, um, And really, we have that distinction, but I don't feel like it's as different as people think at the end of the day, because I feel like logic and creativity plays a role in both. But if I'm looking at, let's say, non-STEM, for starters, like if someone's coming from a non-STEM background, and I'm going with that to start because like a lot of classes that I teach, you have like a lot of non-STEM majors that like have been like scarred by math, and so with that, I think this can help because a lot of people that I have taught, like they're really good at writing, and reading and things of that like, and so if they can apply those sort of skills to the math, I feel like that can really help. And I think it's interesting because there's almost this tragic irony in it because I feel like a lot of people who are from that non-STEM background and they're coming with those like really good literary skills, they're coming with those really good analytical and writing skills. They have the potential to be phenomenal mathematicians, and I feel like they've been so scarred by it that it's hard to get past that. But I'm hoping that people will over time, and I've seen some people who have, and so I'm looking forward to like spreading things out and seeing where that goes. And then what about people who are coming from that more STEM background and you're looking at what's going on in your STEM classes? Well, I feel like this could still help too, because just because you're in STEM doesn't mean you have a strong math background. You have your own interests, sure. And a lot of times we think that yes, you're gonna have a strong background in math, but like it's not always the case. Um, so I think like looking at things differently there can still help. And there's also an interesting thing. You know, we always hear like people talking about that they're scared of like math, but what you don't hear about a lot, but does happen a lot, at least in my experience, is that I know a lot of people who are like good at math or into like various STEM fields that aren't great at writing or at the very least they're not just big fans of it. And I feel like they could actually be pretty effective writers when they wanted to too, because they're used to having their ideas ordered. They're used to knowing where they want to go. So I feel like that can be applied there too, like this connection. And so, what about teaching and what about math? So I feel like, as far as teaching goes, I think recognizing the connection could be very good because you can end up creating more well-rounded students that connect these things more, that they can use their background in writing, their background in math, and fuse them. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And for math as a whole, I think, as a mathematician, we always want more people interested in math. And I feel like this is a good way to do that. And it's a good way to keep ourselves in check to make sure we're more thorough. Because we're speaking to different audiences, and keeping those audiences in mind is important because everyone's coming in at a different background, and you want to talk about what things are. So just like we want students to communicate, we have to communicate well too. So I think it can be good across the board. But all of that being said, while I do think that this is the wave of the future, and I'm calling that now, and I'm going to be doing my part to be pushing that, I do think there's a lot of damage to be undone in the first place. I think that I can't speak for other countries, but like I'm here, I'm in the U.S., and things aren't always that great. Like, and your experience is going to vary, like with how you learn math, right? Because it's going to depend on like your school. It's going to depend on your teacher. It's going to depend on what support's available. And I think we do live in an age where there's more out there now, because it's not just one person struggling with math, and it's not even just like our country. But I do think that we can teach things better. We can go about that better. And so I want to flesh out my ideas over time and really get that across. I want everyone to know that they're capable of doing math. I want everyone to see how it all connects. Um, that's what I want to see, and I hope that these videos have sparked some thought in you, the viewer. And I'm hoping that I expressed myself in a way that was coherent and got my point across. And there will be more videos in the future. Professor Prime out.